Morning and welcome to Western New York at Work. Our guest this morning is insurance agent Marcia C. Brogan with Marcia C. Brogan Agency, which is an affiliate of Niagara National Insurance.
Good morning, Buffalo, and welcome to another episode of Western New York at Work with Dale Martin and Lauren Lewis on BBZ TV. And we have another exciting show in store for you today. As you know, each and every Saturday from 10:30 to 11 o'clock, we always have some interesting dialogue with the individuals that are making it happen throughout all of West New York. And just want to start off by saying good morning to my co-host, Lauren. Lauren, how are you this morning?
Hey, Dale. Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. It's good to see you.
Always good to see you. It's so funny. I feel like we're getting so used to seeing each other via Zoom, but we're all making do with what we can in this time that we are in right now.
Yes,
making it work.
New norm.
Yeah, we make it work. I mean, that's what we always do. Just kind of keep moving forward, adapting, adjusting, pivoting, and here we are.
Yes. And speaking of moving it forward, we have the one and only Marcia C. Brogan, who's with us this morning. Marcia, good morning as well.
Good morning, Dale. Good morning, Lauren.
Hi, Marcia.
So good to be here.
It's been
always great to see you, Marcia.
It's been a while, Marcia. Where have you been?
Oh, I've just been working out of my home office and, communicating with my clients. This has been, even though the quarantine is on, it's been very busy in the insurance world.
Okay. And I'm so glad you mentioned that in terms of us moving forward. Our economy is moving into phase 4. And I think it's a very exciting time. And if we can dispel, because insurance can be very complicated. And I know you're going to demystify all of that, and complexities of insurance. So where would you like to start this morning?
Well, I think a nice thing to talk about is businesses that have employees that work at home. Many employers are having their employees working at home, and it's starting to be where employees are going to be in the future, I think. Employers are starting to realize it might be more cost effective to have them at home. So there are a couple things that you need to think about. One is the employee has their computer or your office equipment. How is that covered? Is your policy covering their equipment away from premises? You need to check your policy to make sure that off-premises property is covered. And another really big area of concern is cyber. I know a lot of companies they're doing things online, and there's a greater chance for hacking. So you really need to look at the cyber policies. If you don't have a cyber policy, look into one. If you do have one, maybe check the limits, because there is an awful lot of exposure with people working from home.
Okay. And speaking of that exposure, Marcia, I know several months ago we did a show and we talked about that exposure. One case can actually wipe a small to medium-sized business out of business.
Exactly, because anybody if it's compromised, you have to notify each one of your customers or clients, and that can be pretty costly. And when you're working from home, you have a computer, and who knows who's going to have access to that computer. You might be working on it, and then all of a sudden your child goes on and does a program and accesses it, or something happens and people are compromised. So you have to be really careful from working from home, and that's a coverage that all businesses really need to have now.
I think, when we hit this pandemic back in March, it forced a lot of businesses in Buffalo to really adapt quickly to the remote work situation. I don't think there were a lot of companies that were ready to have their employees work remotely. And so the insurance policies, like you said, to make sure that they have coverage for off-premise work for their equipment and anything else that they have, I think that's super important and something probably a lot of people didn't have before.
Well,
have you seen?
You are correct. And especially when people are working from home, they might not have the firewalls that they do at their office.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of hacking going on, and you'll see just an awful lot of people trying to access websites, send fake emails, those phishing emails, and you're working quickly. You might not see the whole address, and then you get compromised, and it goes through the whole business. So that's something you really need to look at and really investigate.
Now, Laura, here's a question I want to ask you, because you're talking to many employers that are pivoting and having that work from home. And so is that a conversation that, Laura, that you are starting to maybe have with the employer in terms of making sure that they have that virtual protection or that private VPN network so that that employee can work from home, but at the same time have the right security that Marcia is speaking of?
I mean, I haven't, because that's something I never thought of either, with having employees work from home. This is all new to me, learning about, the equipment being off premise and you could have insurance coverage for that. So Marcia is opening my eyes to that today as well. And I'm sure, a lot of our viewers will take that away as well, and definitely be something to consider, and can reach out to Marcia to learn more for sure.
Absolutely. And also, while we're talking about you working with different businesses, all the businesses should be giving their employees an employee rights poster. Usually you have it posted at your office, but since people are working remotely, it needs to be emailed to them so that they know what their rights are.
That's a great point, Marcia. That's another one that you don't think of. It's one of those things that's in your office. If you've been to any office, you've seen it somewhere. Right. But making sure that your employees do have access to it when they are not in an office, it's not hanging in the break room or in another area of the office, that they need to have that access to it. So that's another great point.
Well, that brings us up to, okay, now businesses are opening and now employees are starting to come back to work. This is causing a lot of anxiety because people are worried about getting sick. And there are certain protocols that businesses have to follow because they do not want to be brought up in a lawsuit from their employees. They don't want to be paying fines from the state if they don't follow the guidelines. And the typical guidelines are social distancing, cleanliness, hygiene, how to clean to make sure that there's no viruses, and of course, masks. Now, a couple things that I did want to talk to you about is first of all, the spacing. You have to make sure that people are comfortable with the spacing. So a lot of businesses are now saying to employees, some employees work at home, and then they might switch on. Some might come into the office, some might not. So it's very important that you set a protocol that whoever comes in, they have to have their temperature monitored. They have to ask those questions. Not that you necessarily have to log it, but you have to be consistent that you do it to everyone, because you don't want someone to say, well, how come I have to get mine done and so doesn't? And then heaven forbid that somebody gets the COVID and comes in and is not tested. Then that opens up a whole nother bag of worms. So the thing about it is it has to be consistent. Develop a protocol and make sure everyone follows it. The same thing with cleanliness. How's the cleaning procedure? Do you clean first thing in the morning? Do you clean at lunch? Who does the cleaning? Who does the wipe down? Do you have cleaning people at night that do it? That's very important because people want to feel safe. They don't want to come to work feeling anxious. They're not going to be able to do their job.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a lot of good points, because it's not just the employees that are anxious about it, but of course they want to make sure if they're coming into an office every day, they're coming in, they're feeling safe, they're feeling healthy. But it's a lot of anxiety too for the business owners and the company executives themselves, because they're trying to figure out, okay, what is the proper protocol? How do we establish this? How do we implement it every single day to make sure that their employees are safe and feeling healthy? And so they're learning new ways to social distance, proper PPE, like you mentioned, cleaning the office. There's so many things that go into it that, we did before. I'm sure everyone had their office cleaned, but thinking about
now it has to be sanitized.
Exactly, the sanitation aspect of it.
And not only your employees, but you have vendors that come in. You might have customers that come in. So what's the protocol for them? You can't say no to one customer and say yes to another. If a customer decides to bring in cash for a payment, you can't say to this customer, no, I don't want cash, and then somebody else comes in and has cash. Consistency is the best, especially if something were to happen. you have to prove that you were doing your due diligence in protecting your staff. So making sure that you have procedures, that you have them written down, that you have checklists so the employees understand exactly what's expected of them, what's expected of you, so it gives them peace of mind.
You're watching Western New York at Work. Don't go anywhere, because after this short break, we will be right back with Marcia C. Brogan, insurance agent.
If you need to go to a shelter due to a natural disaster while the coronavirus is still a threat, always follow local instructions and take these steps to help protect your family. First, take your emergency supply kit with you. When you arrive, observe the CDC's latest guidelines, like wearing cloth face coverings, bringing cleaning supplies and hand sanitizers, and staying 6 feet away from anyone not in your family to reduce the spread of the virus. Disasters won't wait. Neither should you. Visit ready.gov/plan to make a plan today.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Western New York at Work is brought to you by our key business partners and many business professionals, including Bocce's Club Pizza, Staff Buffalo, Buffalo Healthy Living, CAI Global, Hope Buffalo, Embassy Suites Hotel, and 716 Limousine.
Welcome back to Western New York at Work TV. Yeah.
Now, Marcia, have you had any instances where any of your clients or businesses that you work with, either one of their employees or someone that they may have come in contact with, came with, was diagnosed with the COVID-19 or the coronavirus? Has anything hit home personally with you, with any of your clients?
Well, not necessarily. I don't think any of my clients have had employees that have had COVID. They are, like, I insure several daycares, and they're being very conscious about it, because the children come in, they have to follow certain procedures, because children put everything in their mouths. That's the way kids are. So they have to follow strict guidelines. I think the majority of the businesses that I know really make sure that they follow the guidelines.
Okay. And you bring up a very good point, especially with the daycare centers. I would imagine that they have to adhere to some very strict guidelines.
They do. And it's the state and the county gives the guidelines, and it's really up to them to match, to see what the state says and for them to follow. And you know what? The thing about it is, it changes daily. Every time you think you know what you're doing, the next day something else comes up and it changes. So you have to think about it and do your due diligence of what you feel is best to make sure that they're protected. And many of the daycares and many businesses have really cut back on the number of people that are there, so that they are socially distant. Instead of having maybe 15 people in an office, they have 6 people, and they are every other cubicle, so that people aren't next to each other. And they space out their lunches so they're not next to each other.
So a lot of offices have closed their break room as well, so the people can't even be huddled in the break room, kind of socializing and not social distancing. So it's interesting to kind of talk to a lot of different companies and seeing how they're doing things and approaching it to make sure their employees are safe.
Well, that's the thing now. If an employee gets sick at work, they can file for the workers' comp, but they have to prove that they caught COVID at work. And so that's why it's very important for the businesses to make sure that they follow the procedures and they have protocols. So if something were to happen, they can show, this is what I did. I did my due diligence, and, it was impossible for them, or nearly impossible for them, to catch it here. They could have gone somewhere else. And then they have to, now they do all that tracing to see where were the people before, where did it happen. This is very new to the workers' comp. So things are being looked at through a different lens. And so we don't really know how it's going to work out. As far as I know, there have not been any workers' comp claims. regarding COVID, but I'm sure there's going to be some that are going to be brought forth, and they're going to be looking to the business owners to prove that they did their due diligence. And if the business owners didn't, well, then that's something else that they have to deal with.
Which brings us up to mandatory testing. Do we feel that there's a need to have mandatory testing for all businesses, whether it's the professional services company or otherwise?
Well, I think I know a lot of my clients are very frustrated because some have to have testing done all the time, and then there's others that don't. So I think that inconsistency leaves people very confused. Let's just talk about hairdressers. They have to be tested. They have to wear masks. They have to wear shields. And yet you can go to other places like a grocery store. They don't have to be tested, and they're in contact with all kinds of people all the time. So it's confusing. And I think the small businesses are really feeling the brunt of this COVID because many of them are closing their doors because they just can't meet all the requirements. It takes time, it takes money, it takes effort, and they need to bring money in order to keep their doors open. So it's extremely challenging for small businesses.
Oh, it's extremely challenging. It's just not only have they been closed for 2 months at least, but now they're required to put in all this extra effort and equipment and supplies to try and open their doors safely and make sure everything's sanitized. Like you mentioned, the face shields, the temperature checkers. I mean, there's so many new things now that a lot of small businesses just can't do, especially when they had no revenue coming in for 2 months. It makes it really, really hard for them.
Well, they can. Many companies are willing to talk to businesses about deferment if they couldn't make a payment, but eventually those payments have to be made to get them caught up. But at least it would give them a little cushion. Maybe they have their PPP and they can, provide some payment then. But it is challenging, and I really feel for small businesses. I've had several that have decided to give up their offices and work from home. That's phase one, and if they can't make it in phase one, then they might be closing their doors. It's really a scary time for small businesses. So if you can support a small business, it's wonderful. Go out there and do what you can, because it is really challenging for them. And to be perfectly frank, I worry about how many small businesses we're going to have by the end of this.
I know. I feel like every week or two, I see another small business that's closing their doors. And a lot of them have been the restaurant and bar industry establishments because it's just too hard for them.
Right. And a lot of restaurants, they need to be at full capacity in order to make the rent. A lot of them don't own the business. So they have to be at full capacity. Some of them say, we're not going to open till we're at full capacity, but they have to pay their rent. So they're in a catch-22. I went out for the first time this weekend. We went biking downtown, and I actually went to a brewery. They had a tent outside, social distancing. It was great. It was like, oh my gosh, we're a little bit of normal. It was like Christmas. I was just so happy to be out, and there were people, and we had a beer, and we were bike riding. It was wonderful. But everybody respected their space, which was nice, and everybody had their masks on. Which leads us to the thing, when people wear masks, they have to wear the mask the right way. Otherwise, it really doesn't do that much good. You have to cover your mouth and your nose. You just can't. Some people wear it over here. Some people have it down here. They need to cover their nose and their mouth to protect not only themselves, but others. And I know it's like beating a dead horse. We talked about these masks, but whenever you go out, you see it all the time. So it's really important that you wear the mask the right way.
Yeah.
But I know, Marcia, a lot of people do have difficulty breathing in the masks. Have you heard of any tips that can help people breathe easier wearing the masks?
Yes, if you're not breathing the proper way, it causes a lot of anxiety. It could cause headaches, increased heart rate, dizziness, and fatigue. And it could even cause some TMJ because you're clenching, the mask is pulling down where you normally don't, you're talking in a different manner. It's affecting your whole mouth structure. So yes, there's a technique that I just heard there's been a study done. And what they're telling you is to take 5 quality breaths, and you need to breathe in through your nose. Breathing in through your mouth is, how many people just regularly, you breathe in through your mouth, not your nose? You have to be conscious. The proper way for oxidation is to breathe in through your nose. So you take 5 breaths in through your nose, release out of your mouth, put the mask on, take 5 more breaths, and breathe slowly when you have your mask on. And when you have that mask on for 10 hours, I don't know, I don't have to wear the mask. I'm in my office, and when I go out with people, I do it, but it's not for a period of time. It's very challenging. So if you can find a safe environment, you can take a break, take the mask off, and just breathe and relax, because having that mask on does cause anxiety for a lot of people. Yeah. It's like claustrophobic, and a lot of masks are different. So it's very important that you realize that you need to be conscious of your breathing. It's just like yoga. You have to take those deep breaths. Well, you have to do that with the mask.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you.
I love New York. We love New York.
We've been stuck inside our homes,
while our everyday heroes have been working overtime
for New York to reopen
and stay open.
We all need to do our part
and show that we care.
Look, man.
I wear a mask to protect you.
You wear a mask to protect me.
Let's all wear a mask
to stop the spread of coronavirus
and save lives.
When we show up in the mask,
we're showing up for each other.
Show your love for New York.
Because New York loves you.
Welcome back to Western New York at Work TV.
Yeah. So Marcia, let's kind of switch gears a little bit. You mentioned a moment ago about businesses having challenges, cash flow problems. For any business owner or individual that may have lapsed their insurance policy, or they're looking to see what type of coverage that they really should be taking a look at, what type of advice can you provide?
Well, I would say you should review your policy in whole, because obviously your payroll has gone down. So if your general liability, your business owner's policy is rated on payroll, or your gross sales, that has gone down. So that can affect your overall premium. If your workers' comp payroll has gone down, disability, that all can be reviewed and numbers can be changed to your current situation. Maybe you have, like we talked about, property off premises. That might have to be increased. You can lower some coverages. Some coverages you might not need because of the situation, and some you have to increase. So you really need to sit down and go through the policy. I do that, like, for example, some of my daycare centers, they're rated on a head count. Well, their head count isn't there, so let's lower the head count. Let's look at exactly what it is that you need just to get through, and then talk to the company and see, can they help us in any way? How are they willing to work with us? I know auto insurance, they do give you credit. Some companies give 10%, 15%. Some of them gave it just for April and May. Some of them are continuing to June. Each company is different. So if you, for example, on your auto, if you don't see a credit, you should contact the company, look on I'm sure you created your own email, and you can go on the website and check
check your profile and policy to see kind of what they have for you. Yeah.
Right. And then just see exactly where that credit lies, because every little bit helps. But it's a challenging time right now.
Okay. And Marcia, you're just a phone call away, so let's make sure we provide your contact information.
My number is 716-684-6000, extension 225. And my email is Marcia Brogan Agency @gmail.com.
Okay, great. And here's a question, or a comment really to both of you ladies. I can only imagine that the employee handbook is about to change. The employers need to be educated. The employees need to be educated, which means that everything has to be documented. Lauren, are you seeing a wave of employee changes, as well as Marcia? Are you having to educate your clients to upgrade their employee handbook? So something to both of you ladies.
As far as there is a checklist, return to work. There's a return to work packet that if anyone is interested, I can email them that return to work packet along with the checklist for your employees, to make sure that your employees understand everything, and that, like I said before, feel secure in coming to the workplace. So I have that information. Lauren, I can email that to you. You can give it to your businesses that you deal with, and that'll help them feel more secure and more safe in their work environment.
And I think the most important thing too is things are constantly changing and still evolving, and we're all kind of learning as we continue to move forward through these phases, and businesses are reopening and bringing people back. Business owners and executives need to lean on their team, their insurance team, their HR team, their accounting team. I mean, everyone to kind of help them navigate this process to make sure that, you know, we're continuing to move forward as businesses, but we're making sure our employees are feeling safe, feeling healthy, and confident to come back to work and come back to the office or work from home to make sure they are set up for success at home as well.
Great. Well, Marcia, we can't thank you enough for being a part of today's episode. I'm looking forward to more insurance nightmare conversations moving forward. Are there any parting thoughts or anything we want to share with the viewers as it relates to insurance or your agency?
Well, all I can say is if you have a question, if there's a point in time where you're unsure of what to do, you know, my tagline is, I worry so you don't have to. I help you see around corners so that you are well protected, you get peace of mind, and you can sleep at night.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much once again, Buffalo. You're looking at Western New York at Work on WBBZ TV. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll find out some career tips from Lauren Lewis from Staff Buffalo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Lewis with Western New York at Work, also partner at Staff Buffalo. Just wanted to share with you some more career tips as we're kind of navigate moving forward through, you know, getting back to work after the pandemic. And, you know, it's still kind of going on, but we're reopening in phases now, and people are getting back to work. So if you were someone that was furloughed back in March or April due to the pandemic and your business's needs, and you're not sure what's going to happen next, it's always a great time to take advantage of this opportunity to, you know, redo your resume, update it, make sure it's up to date, make sure it is geared toward a position you want to go for. I've talked to candidates all the time who maybe have been furloughed from their most recent position, their current company, and now just because of how we're continuing to progress through this pandemic and with reopenings, some people's jobs might not be there for them once we get through that. So it's always a great time to update that resume and start putting your feelers out there for your next opportunity. Take a look at maybe what you loved about your most recent position, your past positions, what you didn't like, and try looking for new positions that are really more in line with what you want to do and where you want to take your career. Do some research on LinkedIn, on Indeed for different jobs and different companies. And if you are interested in having a conversation with a professional about navigating that career search, you're always more than welcome to reach out to me at Staff Buffalo or one of our recruiters. So in summary, update your resume, start doing some research about what that next career might look like for you and what you want it to look like. And always start, you know, using your network and talking to professionals in the hiring industry to have them help you navigate your career search. If you have any questions, contact us at staffbuffalo.com. Again, I'm Lauren Lewis with Staff Buffalo and Western New York at Work.